There is a version of April 15th, 1912, where the Titanic never sinks. Not because the iceberg moves, not because the captain slows down, because the warning that could have saved 1,500 people actually reaches the one man who could act on it, instead of dying 40 minutes too late in a stranger's inbox. That version of history almost happened. The technology for it already existed. It had been sitting in a laboratory for over a decade, built by a man the world had already decided to stop listening to, while the man who beat him got rich, got famous, and got 1,500 people killed doing it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly whose fault that was. 11:40 p.m. The Atlantic is black and flat and silent. The kind of silence that only exists 1,000 miles from land. A wireless operator named Jack Phillips is sitting at his desk, headphones clamped over his ears, sending passenger telegrams into the dark. Stock prices, dinner party gossip, a message about someone's aunt. An hour earlier, a nearby ship called the Californian had sent him a warning. Ice ahead, stop your engines. Phillips didn't even look up. He was buried under a backlog of rich men's messages. And this one crackling warning was just noise interrupting the queue. He sent back 4 words. "Shut up, I'm busy." 40 minutes later, in the dark, at nearly full speed, the Titanic struck the exact ice field that warning had been about. This isn't a story about bad luck. It's a story about a machine that was built to make money, not to save lives, and a man who tried to stop that from happening and was laughed out of the room for it. His name was Nikola Tesla. 3 days later, in a New York hotel room he could barely afford, he read about the sinking in a newspaper someone had left in the lobby. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He had spent 14 years warning everyone that exactly this would happen, and exactly this had happened. And not one person in that room would remember his name for it. Here's what the world was never told about the wireless system on the Titanic. It wasn't built to save lives. It was built to make Guglielmo Marconi rich. The Marconi company didn't put radios on ships because they cared about passengers dying. They put them there because rich people would pay a fortune to send telegrams from the middle of the ocean. And Marconi built an empire on charging for every single word. Every ship with a Marconi set had 2 things, an operator and a price list. Every message competed for the same operator's attention in the exact order it arrived. A society lady's gossip and a captain's life or death warning went through the same inbox, treated with the same shrug, because Marconi's system was never built to know the difference. It was built to bill by the word, and warnings didn't pay. Phillips wasn't careless. He was doing exactly what Marconi's system paid him to do. That system was designed from the ground up around profit instead of survival. And 1,500 people drowned because of that design choice. Nobody meant for it to happen. That's what made it so easy to let happen. Now, here's where it gets strange. 14 years earlier, in 1898, a man stood in front of a stunned crowd at Madison Square Garden and steered a small iron boat across a pool of water using nothing but a box in his hand. No wires, no visible connection, just a signal and a boat that turned when he told it to turn. Instantly, exactly, every single time. The crowd didn't know what they were looking at. Some thought it was a magic trick. Newspapers speculated he was controlling it with his mind. One reporter allegedly asked if the box contained a trained monkey. That man was Nikola Tesla, and what he'd actually built that day was the world's first remote-controlled machine, powered by a wireless signal designed to do exactly one thing. Command, not chat, not gossip. A single prioritized signal that cut through everything else in the air and did precisely what it was sent to do, the instant it was sent. with no queue, no price list, no operator deciding what mattered more. Tesla wasn't building a way to make money. He was building a nervous system for the entire planet. One where the urgent signal always wins, automatically, because the system itself was built to know the difference between an emergency and small talk. Marconi built a cash register. Tesla built a reflex. And by 1912, Tesla was broke, mocked in every newspaper that used to celebrate him, sleeping in hotel rooms he could barely afford, watching the man who stole his future get toasted at dinner parties for saving lives with technology Tesla built first. The two men had been at war for over a decade. Tesla held the original patents on the core technology, patents that predated Marconi's by years. The US Patent Office had even said so, in writing, in 1903, before quietly reversing itself a year later under pressure nobody has ever fully explained. Marconi had the money. Marconi had the lawyers. Marconi had the government in his pocket. Tesla had a lab and an idea nobody would fund. Marconi built the company. Tesla built the tower. His tower still stood on Long Island in 1912. Wardenclyffe, half finished, rusting in the salt air, 187 feet of steel that newspapers had taken to calling Tesla's folly, a monument to a man everyone had quietly agreed to stop believing, right up until the night that belief would have saved 1,500 lives. Tesla had run out of money trying to build the exact system that would have made the Titanic disaster impossible. A network where the important message never waits in line behind the unimportant one, where a warning could never be mistaken for a wedding invitation. He never got to finish it, and 1,500 people paid for that with their lives. 2 months after the Titanic sank, the United States passed the Radio Act of 1912. It mandated that ships keep their wireless equipment staffed 24 hours a day, no exceptions, no excuses. It mandated that distress signals take absolute priority over everything else on the airwaves, that no operator ever again would have the authority to decide a stock quote mattered more than an iceberg. The government had just built, by law, the exact hierarchy Tesla had already built with steel and copper years earlier for a fraction of the cost. Nobody funded him when it could have saved lives. Everybody agreed with him the second it was too late. So could Tesla have stopped the Titanic? Yes. Not with magic, not by being on the ship. His system, sitting fully built in a Manhattan lab years before the disaster, was engineered to solve the exact failure that sank that ship. A warning that could never be buried, a signal that always wins, no matter who's paying and who isn't. If the world had funded Wardenclyffe instead of laughing at it, that warning never dies in an inbox next to a message about someone's aunt. It gets through, every time. That was the entire point of the machine. And that's the part of this story that should actually bother you, because that failure never went extinct. Every system you use today runs on the same unanswered question Marconi's operators had to guess at 100 times a day, with no rules to guide them, and no one watching closely enough to catch it when they guessed wrong. What matters more, right now, this message or that one? Most of the time, nobody notices the system got it wrong. Most of the time, nothing sinks. Nikola Tesla spent his whole life trying to build a system that couldn't make that mistake. He died broke, alone, in a hotel room, having never finished it, having never once been thanked for trying. The warning that could have saved the Titanic took less than 30 seconds to send. It took 40 years and 1,500 bodies for the world to finally build what one broke, humiliated man had already built alone, in the dark, while everyone laughed. That version of history, the one where the Titanic never sinks, was never science fiction. It was sitting in a lab, built, working, waiting for someone to take it seriously. The only thing standing between 1,500 people and survival was a check nobody wrote and a man nobody believed.